Archaeology is a truly fascinating profession. It can be dirty work sometimes, but it's a job that almost literally brings the past to life, taking something that's ancient and making it feel new again. It's also a job that has the potential to astonish people. Archaeologists often can't believe their eyes when they make their fantastic discoveries, and this video serves as proof of that statement. It's taken years to unlock the secrets of the NOA Vasa Vitiva, but in June 2021, archaeologists finally cracked the case. This unusual underground monument was discovered in Italy's Po Valley in 2005. It was identified as either a wooden water tank or perhaps a communal bath, but that's all the archaeologists of the time could come up with. It took a recent radiocarbon dating breakthrough to reveal more clues, including the fact that the structure is 3,400 years old. A further examination of the ground with non-invasive scanning techniques has also revealed the presence of a virtually identical structure buried directly beneath the NOA Vasa Vitiva. That isn't the only thing that's buried here. The scans and subsequent digs have uncovered a significant number of ceramics and figurines, all of which were buried on purpose. Based on all of these things, it now seems highly likely that there was once a water cult at this site, and that the bath or tank was at the center of their ritual activity. Given that they built themselves a new structure right on top of the old one, it's possible that they first arrived here even longer ago than 3,400 years. Digging up old roads is a good way to find ancient treasures, but it's not often the case that the treasure you find is another old road. This bizarre coincidence happened in June 2021 in the Polish town of Jarosław. Workers laying a new road dug up an old one in preparation for laying down new materials and found an 18th century wooden road lying beneath it. Wooden roads were rare even in the 18th century and usually led to city gates. That might have been the purpose of this one. If so, it can't have been used very often. Wooden roads were exclusively built to carry horse-drawn carriages, which left hoofprints and carriage grooves in the wood. Neither are visible here. Either the road was seldom used or the surface had been replaced immediately before the road was buried. The first possibility might be more likely. The stretch of road is a mere 100 feet long, and although archaeologists have since found other fragments of the road nearby, they don't think they were ever connected to each other. The road might have been abandoned before it was completed. While there's always been speculation that the ancient Romans kept slaves in Britain, there's always been precious little evidence of that behavior, until perhaps now. In April 2021, the remains of a fettered man were found by builders working on a home extension in Rutland, England. The poor builders must briefly have thought that their client was a murderer. This wasn't a recent burial, though. As archaeologists later confirmed, these are the remains of a man who met his fate during either the 3rd or 4th century. He was left deep in a pit with iron shackles around his ankles. Historians think that shackles were usually removed from dead slaves so they could be used again. Either this man did something so awful that he was shackled even in death as a punishment, or there's another explanation for his plight. One such explanation might be a superstitious belief that the dead might rise again unless prevented from doing so, as is alluded to in a few ancient Roman manuscripts. Even if that's what's happened here, though, it's still the first direct physical evidence of the practice existing in Britain. Continuing the theme of Roman discoveries, a so-called secret Sphinx chamber was discovered beneath the palace of Emperor Nero in January 2020. Prior to its discovery, the chamber had remained a secret for 2,000 years. Nero was known for his ostentatious tastes, and it seems those tastes extended even to the tunnels beneath his palace. The walls of the tunnels are covered with murals and animals, both real and mythical, all of which were drawn in vivid shades of red. Some of them might have been gilded, lending credence to the idea that this might have been Nero's fabled Golden Palace. Historians are fairly sure that both the palace and the tunnels were built in the immediate aftermath of the Great Fire of Rome in the year 64. After Nero died, his successors decided to destroy his palace as they considered it distasteful. Parts of it were filled in with dirt, and others were destroyed to make way for structures like the Colosseum. It seems that the wrecking crew either missed the Sphinx chamber or never knew it was there at all. Fully excavating the chambers is likely to be a slow and delicate process, but archaeologists are determined to get it done. The glaciers of Norway are melting. Whether or not you believe that humans have anything to do with it, it's probably not a great thing for the environment. However, it can be a great thing for archaeologists. The melting ice inside Brigheimen National Park is giving up its frozen secrets one at a time as it recedes. In May 2021, a wooden box full of ancient candles was found inside the park at Lendbreen Pass. The ice has done such a good job of preserving the box that the lid was still closed, the box was still sealed, and the candles inside it were still intact. It even still has its original leather handles for carrying. Scientists have been able to carbon date the pinewood box, reaching the conclusion that it was built somewhere around 1475. The candles inside it are made of beeswax, and so it would have been very expensive. They were often used in Norway's seasonal farms. These were places where livestock would be taken to graze in the summer, but facilities were often basic, even by 15th century standards. Candles would have been the only source of light. This one was probably dropped from a horse as it navigated the pass, which would have been annoying for its owner when they eventually realized they'd lost it. Finding a single rock-cut tomb in Egypt is nothing special. Finding a whole 250 of them, though, definitely counts as a discovery for the record books. Here's the whole set, carved into the hillsides of Al-Hamidiyah in Sohag, Egypt. Evidence suggests that the oldest of the tombs was carved around 4,200 years ago, after which the tradition of cutting tombs and burying people here continued for a very long time. The last tomb was carved approximately 900 years after the first one. There are very significant stylistic differences between the older tombs and the newer ones, though. The older tombs are elaborately decorated with large chambers and cross halls. The newer ones are smaller and more humble, with little or no decorations or carvings in most cases. Either the carving skill of the people who made the tombs decreased over time, or there was a change in the site's usage. The most popular theory is that the tombs were initially reserved for deceased nobility, but were open to everybody by the end. There would have been room for more tombs if the ancient Egyptians had carried on carving, so it would be interesting to know why they suddenly stopped. We're back to the topic of Roman discoveries now. Here's a Roman bath from the 4th century, which has emerged from the sand dunes of Cadiz, Spain. The baths are partially ruined, but the fact that there's anything left of them at all is almost miraculous. Cadiz was founded by the Phoenicians more than 3,000 years ago, so the city was already ancient by the time the Romans arrived. It was then razed and smashed to the ground by the Visigoths as they conquered the south of Spain in the year 410. Much of what the Romans built was deliberately targeted, but the baths were spared. They couldn't have been open for very long before the Visigoths arrived. It's likely that they've survived for this long because it was buried by wind-whipped sand shortly after they were abandoned. While the damage done to the building in the past is extensive, there are still traces of the black, red, and white stucco that once decorated the walls. Even the marble cladding is still present in some areas. Rather than being built for a royal or wealthy individual, the baths probably served as a communal space for the workers from the nearby fish farming and salting plants. These days, people tend to sneer at anyone who has a trite slogan like "Live, Laugh, Love" written on their social media profile or on the walls of their home. They shouldn't, though, because humans have been writing equally trite sentiments on objects since the day we learned to write. Take this collection of 80 bronze mirrors, for example. It was recovered from a cemetery in China's Shanxi province in April 2021. Archaeologists believe that the graves the mirrors came from are from the Warring States period, which makes them approximately 2,200 years old. Although many of the graves were looted during times of antiquity, the mirrors have been left alone, perhaps as a mark of respect. Modern-day archaeologists have no such qualms, so they plucked them from right next to the heads of the deceased. The mirrors were sometimes found with traces of silk clinging to them, so they may have been enclosed in silk purses or bags before funerals. They've been found with the bodies of men and women alike, so whatever symbolic purpose they served must have been universal. The slogans written on them include such gems as "Eternal Joy," "Live Long in the Memory," and "Wealth for my family." We're back to the ancient Romans yet again, and to be more specific, we're dealing with ancient Roman security. This is an Arca Ferrata, and it's one of just 4 that are known to exist in the world. You can think of it as a lockbox or safe, because it serves the same purpose. The ornate box was in such a delicate condition when it was discovered in the mid-1990s that archaeologists weren't able to safely excavate and remove it until 2019. The box was found in the ruins of the Casa del Mitreo, which was probably an especially beautiful Roman villa before it burned to the ground some 1,600 years ago. Almost nothing of the villa was spared from the flames, but the thick layers of ash, soot, and debris turned out to be the perfect preservative for the safe. If you're wondering how a wooden safe could possibly protect valuables, here's the twist. This safe is booby-trapped, and those booby traps are active even now. Open it the wrong way, and thick steel spikes will impale you with possibly fatal consequences. Even the archaeologists who found it haven't been brave enough to open it. The rafters of a hay shed seem like a very unlikely place to find the only surviving piece of a 19th century shipwreck. But then we suppose you never know what you might find when you go poking around in an old hay shed. The story goes like this. A vessel called the Maid of Lincoln set off from the Aberlour Islands of West Australia in 1891 with a cargo hold full of guano. The ship was overloaded, and a combination of the excess weight plus bad weather wrecked the ship against the rocks of Jurien Bay not long after it sailed. The crew escaped on a lifeboat and made it to the shore, where they were fortunate enough to encounter the Grigson family and their horse and cart. The Grigsons gave the grateful crew a lift to the nearest town, and the ship's captain left the family with the lifeboat by way of thanks. The Grigsons used it as a fishing boat for years, but stashed it in their hay shed after it sustained damage. That's where it stayed until John Grigson, who is descended from the 19th century Grigsons, found it after inheriting the property in March 2021. It's now on display in a local museum. Next up, it's time to check out this spider mural in northern Peru. It's around 3,200 years old, but archaeologists didn't know it was there until January 2021. The style of art and the reverence given to the spider has led experts to believe that it might have been worshipped as a god. Even with that in mind, it's hard to imagine why the spider god of these ancient Peruvian people would need to carry a knife. But there's one in the mural. The most likely candidates for the creation of the mural are the Cupusnique people, who are known to have lived in this region at the time. We think they associated spiders with rain, although there's some suggestion that they might also have associated them with fertility. The mural isn't far from a river, which would likely have been a vital source of water to the people, so it makes sense to worship a water god close to the river in the hope that the friendly spider will make sure the river never runs dry. There's some archaeological evidence that an ancient temple once stood here too, but it was likely knocked down by farmers several centuries ago. We're all familiar with the concept of a meme. We'd like to think that it's a product of the social media age, but it isn't. In fact, you could describe this medieval silver badge as a meme. It was found in Pontefract, Yorkshire, England in 2020. Archaeologists say that it was probably made during the 13th century and shows a knight climbing out of a snail shell. As if that weren't absurd enough, the snail shell is perched on top of a goat. At the time, snails were associated with cowardice, and so the badge was probably intended as a form of mockery, which is almost always the purpose of all memes. Historians think it was either intended as a parody of the British upper classes, or a suggestion that an enemy had been cowardly in battle. The badge was probably mass-produced and would have been passed from friend to friend for the purpose of amusement. Apparently, someone somewhere in medieval England thought that a knight had behaved in a manner unbecoming, and so this would have been a hilarious thing to see. We guess it's just one of those jokes where you had to be there.
Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and enjoy watching new videos on my channel. Thanks for watching, and see you soon!